Electric motorcycles. 2 words in and 50% of you already dipped out. For some reason, people seem to think that the only way to enjoy life on 2 wheels is to have a piston or 4 rattling away uncomfortably close to your family jewels. But I'm not here to judge. I'm just here to take a look at a bike that I've been wanting to see hit the streets for years. A bike that's light, fast, looks good, and doesn't cost your firstborn or your favorite kidney to buy one. There's really only 2 big players in the EV motorcycle world right now. Pour one out for the folks at Energica. Zero has been working really hard to bring electric bikes to the masses with more affordable offerings like their FXE starting at around $12,500. Some of that affordability does come at the price of fit and finish. But recently we saw Livewire throw their hat into the game with the S2 Del Mar. It was a cheaper way to get into Harley's electric brand, but still has the build quality and premium hardware. It's also $16,249, so even under their own brand, you've got a little bit of the bar and shield pricing with Livewire. Personally, I think the extra price is worth it since you've got a bike with Brembos, fully adjustable Showa suspension, and a bunch of programmable modes allowing you to dial the ride exactly to your liking. But the Del Mar handled a little funny. It's not bad, it's just slow, thanks to big-ass 19-inch rims front and rear. Then you had the Mulholland, which to my knowledge is the first stab at an electric cruiser. You can argue about whether it's dragging enough ass to be a cruiser, but between the longer suspension, the 19-inch front end, and the T-bars, it's cruisery enough for me to give it the brother seal of approval. Brother. You are gonna have to make your own noises like you're on South Park. But for some reason, it took Livewire 3 stabs to put proper sport bike wheels and ergos on the S2 platform. Why they released what I consider the flagship S2 bike last, I'm not sure. But hey, I'm just a guy talking into a mic. It's the cheapest at $16,000, claims a combined 90 miles of city and highway riding, so that's a Sportster's tank, and it needs 78 minutes to get from 20 to 80% charge, so a decent lunch break. It's got 84 horsepower and a comical 194 foot-pounds of torque. In reality, it feels a lot closer to maybe like 100 or 110 because those big biblical torque numbers are insane. But the question is, can you have a fun day of riding one, or are you just stuck in the city? To answer this question, I risked electrocution riding this thing in the rain so that you didn't have to. I'm just kidding. They're waterproof. You'll be fine. Maybe just don't go swimming with it. Well, folks, we're right outside of Muscle Beach here in Venice. This is an Airbnb that me and Chris from Livewire are staying at. The big party is tonight, and here is our steed for the day. Our job is to get over to Malibu. There is a Livewire station out there. There's probably also some charging stations. So we're going to go out there, have some fun on the Twisties, and then charge the bike up and come back. We're basically just going out and having a fun day on this thing and breaking it down. Oh man, it is so humid outside today, and it is raining so hard. I did want to ride in it, kind of just to prove a point, and I think at this point I'm punking myself, but the point I want to prove is that you can be on an electric bike in the rain and you're not going to explode. You know what? I forgot my wallet. Oh, I'm on fire today. There we go. Now we're actually underway. It took long enough, but now I have everything. And now that we're pulling away for reals on the Alpinista here, the first thing that I can say about it is I've got the thing in its leaf mode. This is the most economic riding mode for preserving distance. And I actually spend a lot of time in leaf mode on these bikes, mostly just because I really dig the regen braking. The regen braking always feels a lot like perfect trail braking, especially when you dial it up in leaf mode where it's trying to put as much back into the bike as humanly possible. So it feels really nice and really linear. One thing that I do wish this bike had now that I'm stuck at a light, a lot of these, the one, for example, has haptic feedback in it. So when you're just sitting still, it has this pulse as it's turning stuff on and off inside the bike. And that, it just makes it feel more alive at a stop. And this bike doesn't have that, which is a bit of a bummer. I would have liked to feel that because it's something unique that only Livewire does. But what do you say we get the hell out of Venice here and we actually get somewhere fun to ride? Now you might notice that I'm in the middle of LA and I'm from Texas.
That means I don't know where any of the good roads are, but luckily I don't have to because Kalimoto knows them all for me. Kalimoto is the best route planning app for motorcyclists because they make it easy for you to plan a ride in seconds, share it with your friends, or save it for later. Whenever I'm in a different town looking for a place to go film, I just pull up Kalimoto, put down a pin somewhere that looks good, and select the twistiest roads to get there. Also, here's a huge win. The turn-by-turn navigation actually works. Rever! Me and my buddies all use Kalimoto when we're planning our weekend rides because it's the easiest way to share a route between a group, and you can even export them to use elsewhere if you want. Click that link down in the description below and use the code SPITE10 for 10% off a yearly subscription, and a big shout out to Kalimoto for sponsoring this video.
Oh, this is going to be the super fun part. We're getting on the highway with all of the fun spray from all the cars around me, and I can feel the water just working its way into my boots. This is gonna be a soggy adventure, but we're gonna have it regardless. And I gotta say, I've been riding around being relatively liberal with the throttle through the streets, and it's doing just fine. I've knocked off about 5 or 6 miles already, and I've only lost about 3 on the clock. So this bike is really good, especially in the Leaf mode, at putting what you take out of it back into the bike, which is nice because it just means that, you know, you don't really have to be super duper worried about the range anxiety. One of the things that does provoke a lot of range anxiety, though, is highway riding. So we're going to see how it handles that once I manage to make it onto the 405. Okay, so now that we're actually on the highway proper, you're probably hearing it in my voice. This is not a very smooth section of road. There's a pretty predictable clip-clop to the highway here. It's basically just these pads of concrete. And the suspension, it's definitely a lot more taut. That's one thing that I've noticed with the aero bikes. The arrows they have this really nice stiff suspension. But when you start going over the like clip-cloppy highway stuff like this, it does start to beat up on you just a little bit. That being said, we are just cruising right now. We're doing 60 miles an hour, and the bike feels totally happy. It's still got plenty more to give me if I ask it. But we are starting to eat through the battery. This is the curse of riding one of these bikes on the highway, is you do start ending up tearing through the battery that's in here, because this sort of sustained highway riding is really not what these bikes are designed for. Plus, the faster you go, the more wind resistance you get, and you're asking the bike to push harder. So about 60 miles an hour, I think, is where I've found the best range to power, I suppose, or range to speed, I suppose. It's also a very cold day, and cold doesn't help battery life, but I will say, as a highway bike, this bike is pretty well set up. I've got cruise control going. The only thing I wish I had, which I don't, is heated grips, because that would be very nice right now. Oh, it's cold. It's cold. All right, we finally made it to the twisty road that I wanted to ride, or at least one of them. Turns out, because of those fires a little while back, they ended up having to close a lot of the roads, which is why I ended up on the highway. This place is like 7 miles as the crow flies from where I'm staying, which is kind of funny when you think about it. But now that we're actually climbing through the hills, I gotta say, this is one of the best bikes Livewire's put out for being on the side of the tire. And obviously I'm taking it a little bit cautious through here because, you know, it is very wet. But the tires are good and sticky even in the cold and rain. But one of the issues that I had with the S2 Del Mar specifically was it had the 19-inch front and rear tires. And that was cool. It looked great. And once it got on a line, it held the line really, really well. But if you want something for carving a corner, you want 17-inch tires. And that was one of the biggest issues that I had with that bike. When I got done riding it, I was like, man, if only it had 17s. Well, now it does in the form of the Alpinista. And there's definitely a lot of other little changes here and there, like the rank angle is different. Some of the hardware is different. But it still feels at its bones like an S2 Aero motorcycle. And that platform is phenomenal. It feels great. And it feels just as good here. The brakes are sharp. The flicking is good. Once it gets online, it holds the line super well. But unlike its older brother, the Del Mar, this thing it flicks in so much quicker. It's got these nice wide handlebars. I could even go with these handlebars being a little bit wider, to be honest. One of those things where, it's rider preference and it's easy to fix. But I would definitely want some thicker bars. Let's have some fun real quick. I'm going to bump it up into A mode. A mode, on every Livewire that I ride, I always program it the same. It's what I like to call all balls mode, baby. It's full power, full regen braking, and everything. The throttle, the snappiness of the throttle is maxed out. It's as hardcore as you could get this bike to be. And then I set it with sport traction control because, that's me. I think one of the best things about these bikes is how modular you can make them. If you don't like the modes that are in here, you can modify them to your specific liking, which is nice. Now, we'll talk about this a little bit later on when I get back and start doing the post-mortem, because I'm having to alter this video slightly as I'm filming it, because not only now am I a very soggy boy, I am a very chilly boy. So we're going to pull off the road and do a post-mortem back at the hotel. But while we're still out here, I do want to talk a little bit about range, because this is something that I know people are going to have issues with. So first and foremost, on level 2, this bike takes 80 minutes to go from 20 to 80 or 0 to 80. I don't remember exactly, but I'll have it on screen. And I mentioned that to say I've clipped off about 26 miles indicated. I started that odometer a little bit after I had to turn around and go back to the hotel. So I'm going to go ahead and call that closer to 35 miles. And when I got on it, it had 120 miles of range at 100% charge. I'm currently at 56% charge. And now that I have it in all balls mode, I'm definitely going through that battery a lot faster. The thing about range on these bikes is the range is what you make of it, right? So if I'm going to drop it back into leaf mode, the throttle's a lot less abrupt, and you will start seeing the range count back up, right? It really comes down to what you make of the range that you have. Are you going to tear your way through the battery? Because you absolutely can. You can have a really, really rip-roaring great time for, 40 miles, or you could have a great time for a lot longer if you're just modulating that throttle like a normal person. And that's where I think a lot of people are going to have their issues, right? They're going to be like, oh, well, I don't have to modulate the throttle on my gas bike. Yeah, you do. You definitely need to modulate your throttle because you're going to tear through your gas just as fast. The thing is, you are going to be able to fill it up a little bit faster, right? Now, originally, my plan for today, if the weather was going to cooperate, was to go down to Malibu, grab a sandwich while this thing recharged, and not have to worry too much about what the state of charge was on this bike. And now, I am having to cut things short just a little bit because of the nature of the weather, right? I would have cut this short regardless, but I'm not going to sit somewhere in my soggy altogether, and wait for the bike to top itself back off. That being said, the time that I've had on this bike has been great. I've honestly enjoyed riding this thing around, even on the highway, because it's so smooth. It's so effortless. Even in the eco mode, you get a lot of power out of this thing. And that's super cool. That's super duper cool. But now with all that being said, it's time to pull this thing back over. It's time for me to, put on my nice warm jammies, dry off. We're going to see how long it takes for it to charge in real time on level 1. and we're gonna wrap this thing up because I'm so cold. I'm so cold. It's gonna be a cold 30 miles to get back. See you guys in a bit.
Unfortunately, the driving rains that I was expecting to see out of the Pacific Northwest sent me running for the hills because I live in Texas and it's just a myth that you can have water falling from the sky. And I thought that was the same thing in LA, but apparently I was wrong. I had this whole elaborate thing planned out, but alas, here we are. Also, you might notice this is not an Alpinista. This is just the only electric bike I have to sit next to, so BTX it is. Let's answer the first question that I know people are probably gonna ask. Is the Alpinista good? Yes, obviously, it's a very good motorcycle. I had so much fun riding it around, so much so that I actually asked my folks over at Livewire if they could not only send me the Alpinista to ride for a long time, but also the Del Mar again, because I only rode it once, and the Mulholland. So I'll get to ride the entire line of S2 motorcycles and see how they all shake down next to each other. Because believe it or not, they are very different motorcycles. And that I think is the second question that I want to address really quickly. What makes the S2 Alpinista different from the Del Mar or the Mulholland beyond just tires? Is it really just different tires on this motorcycle? On the outside looking in, you might be forgiven for thinking that, but they really do feel quite different. The way that you sit on the motorcycle, especially on the Alpinista, is a little bit more aggressive. It's definitely more of a canyon carver, and personally to me, I think the Alpinista is the one that Livewire should have led with. This is the flagship of the S2 Aero platform. It's so bizarre to me that they started with the Del Mar. I don't understand it. I mean, the Del Mar is a great motorcycle, but the Alpinista is just more fun for, I think, more people. Now, that is not to say that the Alpinista is without its downsides, and obviously the biggest one that comes with any electric bike right now is range and charge time. For me, I barely got it home on about 50 miles of charge, but I was not at all trying to save battery life. I was being liberal with the throttle. This is one of the things that I try to impress upon people. You get the range out of an electric motorcycle that you ask it to give you. If you are heavier on the throttle like I am, I always set up one of the modes that is all regen, all throttle, and as much power as it can put down. That just eats up battery life. I would aim it directly at somebody who lives in, say, downtown Austin, where it's really easy for you to get out to some nearby Twisties that are really nice, and then you can charge it up in your parking lot. By the way, for those of you who are wondering, it took about 5 hours to go from 10% to 100% on a level 1 charge. Your mileage may vary depending on the bike, but honestly, that's not that big a deal to me. After sitting on that bike in the freezing rain for as long as I was pretty much ready to be done for the day. In fact, I didn't ride it again until much, much later in the evening when I went to that launch party. Personally, of all of Livewire's motorcycles, the Alpinista is the one to get. I love the One. It's a great motorcycle with more range, but the Alpinista, it's a special bike. It wheelies like nobody's business. It has so much power under the hood given its weight, and it handles so well, and it looks cool to boot. If you haven't checked out one of the Livewires, I highly recommend you go throw a leg over the Alpinista just to see what you think. And if you can, take it for a test ride because you're gonna be surprised by how much power that thing really does put down. With that, guys, I'm gonna wrap this one up. Stay tuned for that head-to-head among all 3 of the S2 Aero bikes. I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.